From the Presidential Palace, Manila, Dateline Malacañang.
Good day. Radio Pilipinas World Service can also be heard on shortwave broadcast through the shortwave facilities of the United States Agency for Global Media or Voice of America on the following shortwave frequencies: 15.640 MHz, 17.750 MHz, and 21.720 MHz. I'm your host, Leo Magpayo, and this is Dateline Malacañang. Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. is set to welcome Filipina tennis star Alex Ayala in Malacañang Palace on Monday evening as the palace hosts a special homecoming reception honoring her breakthrough performance on the world stage. The meeting is scheduled at 6:30 in the evening, where the President will personally congratulate Ayala for her historic run at Wimbledon, highlighted by her stunning victory over Polish tennis superstar Iga Natalia Swiatek on July 4th. Swiatek, a former world number one in women's singles, is one of the most dominant players in the global tennis, making Ayala's win one of the biggest achievements of her young career. Although Ayala's Wimbledon campaign ended on July 6th after her loss to Italian standout Jasmine Paolini, her performance has earned widespread admiration for showcasing world-class skill, composure, and resilience. President Marcos earlier praised Ayala as a powerful inspiration to Filipino youth, saying the entire nation stands firmly behind her, whether she's battling top-ranked opponents abroad or returning home to celebrate her achievements. Monday evening's reception is expected to be both warm and symbolic as the government pays tribute to an athlete who continues to elevate Philippine sports on the international stage and prove that Filipino talent can shine among the world's best.
Dateline Malacañang.
Meanwhile, Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. is set to visit Camiguin on Monday morning to inaugurate two newly completed port facilities in Mahinog and lead the rollout of the Bawat Bayan Makikinabang Camiguin program in Mambahaw, pairing major infrastructure upgrades with direct government services for local residents. The President will begin the day in Mahinog, where he will inspect and inaugurate the Benoni Port Operations Building and the Lightcraft Landing Station. These projects are expected to ease passenger movement, strengthen port operations, and boost maritime connectivity through one of Camiguin's busiest gateways. Philippine Ports Authority or PPA Port Manager Fernando Mapalo Jr. said the completion of the facilities marks a significant improvement in public service and regional transport efficiency. From Mahinog, President Marcos will proceed to Mambahaw to lead Bawat Bayan Makikinabang Camiguin at the Camiguin Gymnasium. The program brings national government agencies directly to communities, offering services and assistance designed to make government support more accessible to residents. A similar rollout last May 13th reached 5,096 beneficiaries who received 10 kilograms of rice under the national government's food assistance program, part of the administration's broader push to deliver social support to vulnerable sectors. Joining the President in Camiguin are Department of Transportation Acting Secretary Giovanni Lopez, PPA General Manager J. Daniel Santiago, Governor Xavier Jesus Romualdo, Representative Hurdin Jesus Romualdo, Mahinog Mayor Ray Lawrence Tan, Mambahaw Mayor Inigo Jesus Romualdo, and other national and local officials. According to the Presidential Communications Office, the day's activities highlight the administration's strategy of pairing infrastructure investments with social service initiatives, strengthening connectivity, supporting local economic growth, and ensuring essential government programs reach communities across the province.
Dateline Malacañang.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. is calling on the world to ensure that the South China Sea never turns into a battleground. Speaking before diplomats during a reception marking the 10th anniversary of the 2016 Arbitral Award, the President stressed that the resource-rich waters must remain a sea of peace, cooperation, and connectivity. President Marcos urged governments, diplomats, and citizens to build on the legacy of the landmark ruling and uphold the rule of law as the foundation of regional stability. He reminded the international community that the Philippines chose dialogue over confrontation when it pursued arbitration in 2013, anchored on the belief that disputes must be settled peacefully and never through force or intimidation. The chief executive said the 2016 ruling is more than a legal victory. It directly affects Filipino communities whose livelihoods depend on the sea. He emphasized that lasting peace can only stand on justice, mutual respect, and the sovereign equality of nations. President Marcos Jr. reaffirmed the Philippines' commitment to the United Nations Charter and the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea or UNCLOS, saying the country will continue constructive engagement with partners to keep the South China Sea open, stable, and secure for all.
13 years ago, when the Philippines initiated these arbitration proceedings, we stood before the world to assert a timeless, universal principle that disputes between nations must be resolved not through coercion, not through the threat or use of force, but through peaceful. 13 years ago, when the Philippines initiated these arbitration proceedings, we stood before the world to assert a timeless, universal principle that disputes between nations must be resolved not through coercion, not through the threat or use of force, but through peaceful means and the rule of law. In making that historic decision in 2013, which culminated in the landmark 2016 Arbitral Award, our nation chose dialogue over confrontation, law over intimidation.
The tribunal ruled that Beijing interfered with Filipino fishing and petroleum exploration, built artificial islands within Philippine waters and failed to stop Chinese vessels from exploiting marine resources inside the country's exclusive economic zone.
Dateline Malacañang.
A coalition of 14 countries commemorated the 10th anniversary of the landmark 2016 arbitral ruling on the South China Sea, reaffirming that the decision remains legally binding and rejecting China's sweeping maritime claims anchored on so-called historic rights. In a joint statement released Sunday, the Philippines, Australia, Canada, Estonia, Germany, Italy, Japan, Latvia, Lithuania, New Zealand, Romania, Slovenia, the United Kingdom, and the United States reiterated their commitment to a free, open, and rules-based Indo-Pacific. They stressed that the July 12, 2016 award issued by the Permanent Court of Arbitration under the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, or UNCLOS, is final, legally binding, and definitive between the Philippines and China on the maritime entitlements covered by the case. The coalition emphasized that maritime disputes must be settled peacefully and strictly in accordance with international law, while underscoring the need to safeguard freedom of navigation, overflight, and other lawful uses of the sea. The Philippines filed the arbitration case in 2013 amid rising tensions with China over competing claims in the South China Sea. The tribunal's ruling invalidated China's expansive 9-dash line, declaring that Beijing's assertion of historic rights over most of the strategic waterway has no basis under UNCLOS. It also affirmed that features such as Panganiban Reef or Mischief Reef and Ayungin Shoal or Second Thomas Shoal lie within the Philippines' exclusive economic zone. Despite the ruling, China has refused to recognize or comply with the award and continues activities in disputed waters, including confrontations involving Philippine vessels in the West Philippine Sea. The 14 signatories voiced strong opposition to destabilizing or unilateral actions, whether by force or coercion, that threaten regional peace and stability. They also condemned the use of Coast Guard, military, or maritime militia vessels to harass or obstruct lawful operations at sea or in the air, warning that such actions endanger personnel and fishermen and undermine security in the region. The coalition urged all parties to respect the 2016 arbitral award and resolve disputes through dialogue and lawful mechanisms consistent with international law. They also reaffirmed support for the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN's vision of the South China Sea as a sea of peace, stability, cooperation, and prosperity driven by lawful commerce.
Dateline Malacañang.
In other news, the Philippine Cabinet has given the green light to the proposed 2027 National Expenditure Program, or NEP, after a presentation by the Department of Budget and Management, or DBM, during a meeting led by President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. at Malacañang Palace. Presidential Communications Office Acting Secretary Dave Gomez said the administration will release the full details of the spending plan, including the total budget, once the President formally transmits the proposal to Congress, in line with the budget process. Gomez added that officials do not want to preempt the president's submission. The NEP serves as the government's proposed budget for the coming fiscal year and forms the basis for Congress in drafting the General Appropriations Bill or GAB, which becomes the General Appropriations Act or GAA once signed into law. The spending plan outlines government expenditures and funding allocations for programs and initiatives for the year 2027. According to National Budget Memorandum Number 158, the Marcos Jr. administration is targeting a 7.2 trillion peso national budget next year, equivalent to 21.7% of the country's gross domestic product or GDP. The figure is 6% higher or about 407 billion pesos more than the 6.793 trillion peso budget for 2026.
Dateline Malacañang.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. has opened the new headquarters of the Presidential Guard Group in San Miguel, Manila, honoring the dedication and professionalism of the men and women tasked with protecting the President, the First Family, and the nation. The Presidential Communications Office, or PCO, said the inauguration reflects the administration's continued support for the welfare and operational readiness of the Presidential Security Command. President Marcos commended Presidential Security Command or PSC personnel for their unwavering service and the critical role they play in maintaining security and ensuring the smooth functioning of government. The President acknowledged that presidential security demands discipline, competence, and constant preparedness, urging the unit to care for the new facility and treat it as their second home as they carry out their mission. The upgraded headquarters is expected to strengthen the group's ability to fulfill its mandate through improved facilities and better working conditions.
Dateline Malacañang.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. personally inspected the ongoing rehabilitation of the Navotas Fishport Complex or NFPC on Saturday, highlighting the crucial role the country's largest fish trading hub plays in supporting fisherfolk and maintaining a stable supply of affordable, high-quality seafood for Filipino consumers. In a social media post, the president described the NFPC as one of the Philippines' most important fish landing and trading centers. He stressed that its modernization is necessary to meet the growing demands of the fisheries sector and to ensure that port operations remain safe, efficient, and responsive to industry needs. President Marcos said, upgraded facilities will not only improve daily operations at the port, but also uplift the livelihoods of fisherfolk, entrepreneurs, and thousands of workers who depend on the fishing industry. He emphasized that a modernized NFPC will help guarantee a steady flow of fresh, quality seafood to households across the country. The president said that with a more modern and improved port, operations will become safer and more efficient. The livelihoods of fisherfolk, entrepreneurs, and everyone who depends on the fishing industry will improve, and a steady supply of high-quality food for the Filipino people will be ensured. The inspection is part of the administration's broader push to upgrade public infrastructure, supporting the fisheries sector, and reinforce national food security. President Marcos reviewed port operations and checked the progress of rehabilitation works aimed at modernizing one of the country's most vital fisheries facilities. Agriculture Secretary Francisco Chu Laurel Jr. joined the president during the visit. Operated by the Philippine Fisheries Development Authority, the Navotas Fishport Complex serves as the country's premier fish trading center and plays a central role in distributing seafood across Metro Manila and nearby provinces.
Dateline Malacañang.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. has ordered the extension of the Civil Registration and Vital Statistics or CRVS decade in the Philippines until 2030, reinforcing the country's push for universal, timely, and fully digital civil registration. Under Proclamation No. 1339, signed on July 6, the President moved to continue the CRVS decade, originally set to end this year, aligning the Philippines with the United Nations Economic and Social Commission for Asia and the Pacific or UNESCAP Regional Action Framework and the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda. The proclamation designates the Philippine Statistics Authority or PSA as the lead agency tasked to coordinate, oversee, and monitor all programs under the extended CRVS initiative. The PSA is directed to work closely with government agencies, local government units or LGUs, and key stakeholders to accelerate reforms and expand access to legal identity services nationwide. The extension follows the agreement reached during the Third Ministerial Conference on Civil Registration and Vital Statistics in Asia and the Pacific, where member states resolved to continue the regional CRVS decade through 2030 in support of the Sustainable Development Goals. The Philippines reaffirmed this commitment through the 2025 Ministerial Declaration and PSA Board Resolution No. 14, Series of 2025. While the proclamation cites major gains over the past decade, including improved birth and death registration and wider access to legal identity for marginalized sectors, it also acknowledges persistent gaps. These include delays in universal registration, limited integration between health and civil registry systems, and the need for deeper digitalization. The PSA's mandate is anchored on Republic Act or RA No. 10625 or the Philippine Statistical Act of 2013. Earlier issuance, PSA Board Resolution No. 3 and Proclamation No. 1106 in 2015 declared 2015 to 2024 as the CRVS decade. Under the new proclamation, all government agencies, government-owned or controlled corporations or GOCCs, local government units or LGUs, non-government organizations or NGOs, and private sector partners are enjoined to extend full support to the PSA in implementing programs under the expanded CRVS decade. In essence, the Marcos Jr. administration is pushing for a more modern, more inclusive, and more responsive civil registration system, one that ensures every Filipino is counted, recognized, and provided access to essential services.
Dateline Malacañang.
Philippine Defense Secretary Gilberto Chodoro Jr. is warning China's emerging narrative linking Batanes to Taiwan, while ridiculous on the surface, should not be brushed aside, saying it reflects strategic messaging that demands vigilance from the Philippines. Speaking during the National Peace Walk in Manila, marking the 10th anniversary of the 2016 South China Sea arbitral ruling, Chodoro said, "Remarks made by Chinese academics cannot be taken lightly because of China's political system." The defense chief was referring to a Chinese academic's claim that Batanes historically belonged to Taiwan, an assertion that has drawn sharp criticism from Philippine officials and legal experts. Former Supreme Court Associate Justice Antonio Carpio even challenged China to bring the matter before an international court if it believes it has a legal basis. Chodoro said the immediate priority is preventing any incursions into Philippine territorial waters and the country's exclusive economic zone around Batanes. Beyond territorial claims, Chodoro urged Filipinos to stay alert to other forms of foreign interference. He emphasized that the government's preparations cover the entire Philippine maritime domain, not just the West Philippine Sea, including the Pacific seaboard and the Philippine Rise. Chodoro acknowledged that the 2016 arbitral ruling alone cannot stop China's action, but said it has weakened Beijing's international narrative and bolstered global support for the Philippines. The Philippines won the arbitral award on July 12, 2016, invalidating China's sweeping 9-line claim in the South China Sea. Beijing continues to reject the ruling, but it remains final and legally binding under the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, or UNCLOS, and stands as the legal foundation of the Philippines' position in the West Philippine Sea.
Dateline Malacañang.
Meanwhile, Philippine senators marked July 12 with renewed confidence in the Philippines' landmark victory at the Permanent Court of Arbitration in The Hague, emphasizing that the 2016 ruling, now a decade old, continues to stand firm against China's expansive claims in the West Philippine Sea. The arbitral tribunal's decision, issued on July 12, 2016, invalidated China's 9-line and affirmed the Philippines' sovereign rights to explore and manage resources within its 200 nautical mile exclusive economic zone. Lawmakers stressed that the ruling remains a powerful legal anchor for the country's position in the region. Commemorations were held across the country, including a flag-waving program in Quezon City led by Akbayan Party List members during the observance of West Philippine Sea Victory Day. The event highlighted the continuing relevance of the ruling, which declared China's sweeping claims to be without legal basis under international law. Senators underscored the importance of remembering the victory, noting that China continues to advance narratives and actions that challenge Philippine sovereignty, including recent attempts by Chinese academics to link Batanes to Taiwan. Lawmakers described such claims as part of broader disinformation efforts that reinforce the need to uphold the arbitral award as a shield against false narratives. They also paid tribute to Filipinos living in Pagasa Island and the Kalayaan Island Group, recognizing their role in quietly defending the nation's maritime domain through their presence and daily lives. Senators called on the public to demonstrate patriotism through concrete actions, supporting local communities, investing in development, and standing firm in defending national interests. Lawmakers emphasized that the Hague ruling is only the beginning of a longer struggle to ensure that Filipino fisherfolk can work freely and safely in the West Philippine Sea, and that hope and freedom become lived realities rather than mere names of islands. Amid ongoing tensions, senators reiterated that the Philippines' position remains clear. The West Philippine Sea belongs to the Filipino people, and the country will continue to assert its sovereignty, protect its maritime rights, and safeguard the livelihood of communities that depend on marine resources. They stressed that the arbitral award is final and binding, cannot be erased by time, and cannot be overturned by intimidation or coercion. While the Philippines does not seek conflict, lawmakers affirmed that the nation will not retreat from defending its territory, its people, and its future.
Dateline Malacañang.
The Philippines has once again demonstrated its leadership in regional safety and emergency preparedness after successfully hosting the Association of Southeast Asian Nations or ASEAN Nuclear Emergency Notification and Communication Exercise held from the 6th to the 8th of July in Metro Manila. The three-day activity was jointly organized by the Nuclear Energy Program Interagency Committee or NEP-IAC and the ASEAN Network of Regulatory Bodies on Atomic Energy or ASEAN-TOM. The exercise aimed to strengthen Southeast Asia's readiness and coordination in the event of an unexpected nuclear or radiological emergency. Representatives from ASEAN member states participated, along with international partners such as the International Atomic Energy Agency or IAEA, the European Commission, and the ASEAN Center for Energy or ACE. Through realistic emergency scenarios, the exercise tested rapid information exchange among countries, early notification protocols, radiological monitoring, public safety planning, and coordinated dissemination of official information to prevent misinformation and fake news during a crisis. Officials say the lessons and outcomes from the exercise will further reinforce both national and regional preparedness systems, especially as the Philippines continues to advance and develop its own nuclear energy program. The successful conduct of the exercise underscores the country's commitment to regional cooperation and its growing role in promoting nuclear safety and emergency readiness across Southeast Asia.
Dateline Malacañang.
The death toll from Typhoon Inday and the enhanced southwest monsoon climbed to 18 as of Sunday, July 12, with more than 562,000 people affected nationwide and hundreds of passengers still stranded in ports due to dangerous sea conditions. The Office of Civil Defense or OCD reported one additional fatality in Calanogas, Lanao del Sur, raising the number of deaths from the July 10th landslide in Barangay Ninir to 6. Another 10 people were killed in a separate landslide in Malapatan, Sarangani, while 2 individuals drowned in Bukidnon. At least 7 people sustained injuries in incidents recorded in Marinduque, Sarangani, Davao Occidental, Lanao del Sur, and Baguio City. Authorities are also searching for 12 missing individuals, 7 in Jose Abad Santos, Davao Occidental, and 5 in Calanogas, Lanao del Sur. The National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council, or NDRRMC, said validation of all reported casualties remains ongoing. The combined weather disturbances have affected 123,000 families, or roughly 562,000 individuals across multiple regions. Of these, 4,200 families, about 16,200 people, are currently staying in 116 evacuation centers. Government data show 236 houses were damaged, with 222 sustaining partial damage and 14 completely destroyed. To support affected communities, authorities have so far distributed 28.57 million pesos worth of assistance, including food packs, relief goods, and emergency support. Officials warn that unstable weather conditions may continue to pose risk, and response operations remain active across impacted areas.
Dateline Malacañang.
Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. has ordered an immediate technical assessment of Culiat Bridge 2 along Congressional Avenue in Quezon City following a fire that broke out beneath the structure on Saturday evening. Public Works Secretary Vince Dizon reported that after clearing operations conducted jointly with the Quezon City government, the Department of Public Works and Highways, or DPWH, will begin temporary repairs on the portion of the bridge where the asphalt surface was lifted due to the incident. Engineers are now conducting a full structural evaluation to determine the extent of the damage and identify the rehabilitation measures needed to ensure the bridge remains safe for motorists. The fire prompted concerns about the integrity of the bridge, a key connector for thousands of daily commuters in the area. Technical teams have been deployed to inspect the affected span, assess potential risks, and recommend immediate and long-term interventions. Authorities emphasize that safety remains the top priority. While temporary repairs aim to stabilize the affected section, the ongoing technical assessment will guide the full rehabilitation plan to prevent further hazards and maintain smooth traffic flow along Congressional Avenue. The directive underscores the administration's push for rapid response and infrastructure safety, ensuring that critical road networks remain secure and operational for the public.
Dateline Malacañang.
And finally, First Lady Liza Araneta Marcos led a rice distribution activity in Malabon this Monday morning, bringing government assistance directly to thousands of residents as part of the administration's continuing support programs for local communities. Around 3,000 Malabueños are set to receive 10 kilograms of rice each, an initiative carried out under the Local Government Support Fund, or LGSF. The program aims to ease the burden on families affected by rising food costs and ensure that vulnerable households have access to essential commodities. The First Lady's visit underscores the administration's push to deliver social services at the community level, working closely with local government units, or LGUs, to identify beneficiaries and ensure that aid reaches those who need it most. The distribution also forms part of broader efforts to strengthen food security and provide immediate relief to low-income families. In her brief message before the distribution, the First Lady recalled the last time she visited the community. Back then, she said, the team brought the Love for All program, offering free medical services to families who needed them most. This Monday, she explained, her visit carried a different purpose. She shared that the president had asked her to come not just to represent him, but to personally deliver his message of support to the people of Malabon. The community, she said, has always held a special place in their hearts. As volunteers began preparing the sacks of rice for distribution, she expressed hope that the 10 kilograms of rice each family would receive could help lighten the days ahead. It was a simple gesture, she said, but one meant to ease the burden of rising costs and to remind residents that the government sees them, hears them, and stands with them.
The last time nandito kami, may Love for All program kami. Nagbigay kami ng free medical services. Ngayon naman, pinadala ako ng asawa ko para ibigay yung kanyang mensahe sa inyo na mahal ka dyan nila. And sana itong konting bigas na ibigay namin makakatulong sa mga araw na dadating.
Officials welcomed the activity, noting that Malabon, one of Metro Manila's most densely populated cities, continues to benefit from national government programs that support daily needs and improve community welfare. Monday's event adds to a series of outreach activities led by the First Lady across different cities and provinces, reflecting a sustained effort to bring assistance closer to Filipino families and reinforce the government's commitment to inclusive, people-centered service delivery.
Dateline Malacañang.
Before we conclude our program, Radyo Pilipinas World Service of the Presidential Broadcast Service can be heard over the following shortwave frequencies: 15.640 MHz, 17.750 MHz, and 21.720 MHz. Radyo Pilipinas World Service is also live on audio streaming. Just download Evox PBS Receiver on your Google Play Store or the App Store from your Apple phone. You can also visit our Facebook page and YouTube channel. Just type in and search for Radyo Pilipinas World Service. Kindly subscribe, like, and share our posts as well. And that concludes this edition of Dateline Malacañang. For Radyo Pilipinas World Service, this is Leo Magpayo. Good day and stay safe.
From the Presidential Palace, Manila, Dateline Malacañang.